Hey guys, usually not back on as fast as I am this morning, but I received an email and it was something I wanted to share with y'all. If you're like I am, it's Easter and we're going to be doing a lot of cooking today and stuff like that, so it may be a good one that you just may want to throw on and listen to. Fortunately, it's not a death we're going to be talking about this time, so that's always a good thing. Uh, it is scary, but I got this from, he wants to remain anonymous. He is a Missouri deputy sheriff, and this account happened in 2000. So I want to go ahead and get into what he sent me. It's a statement. He said, I received a call of a suspicious prowler. He said it's very uncommon for it to come over the radio of a suspicious prowler, which I agree with him. They usually don't come in like that. It'll come as a prowler, trespasser or something like that usually. But anyways, he done what most officers do. Is he got on his cell phone and he called dispatch to get more information to keep it off the air, keeps rubberneckers away. Them are people that want to come and see what's going on. But dispatch had advised him that the call that had came in was a hysterical uh, call. The person was hysterical and said that they had a Bigfoot trying to enter their house and they had assaulted or fought with this creature. He says, as I arrived on the scene, I was spotlighting the house, and as I pulled in, I seen an elderly man standing at the front door. Whenever I walked up and met the elderly man, he was in his 70s. He was holding a pump shotgun, and I recognized it to be an older shotgun because it had the hammer on it. He said his 10-year-old grandson was in the house. He was very upset and crying, and the grandmother was upset herself. He said she was shaking, and he said he noticed she was more fidgety, walking around, couldn't sit still, and she said the husband was very sweaty. And he said the night was a cool night, but he said he was sweating profusely, which could be a sign of shock. Uh, he said his 10-year-old grandson, is what he told the officer, was in the house, and he said that he seen a creature through the window as he had walked over to get a piece of candy. Now, the older gentleman says they've been having trouble with a creature around their house. They wasn't sure exactly what it was because they hadn't seen it until this night, but something had been beating on the house. It had been whistling. Uh, at one point, they heard something try to get in the back door, they thought. Just the normal things that you hear in all the cases. He says this had been going on for a long time. He said quite a while, and but they had never seen anything. Nothing ever got hurt. Nothing was ever killed or anything like that. It was just a nuisance. They thought it was the teenagers running around. He said he never would want to hurt a teenager. He said, I know kids like to play jokes as I did whenever I was younger, and he's telling the officer all this. And anyways, the officer says he becomes worried about him because he's profusely sweating and very upset. So he said the grandson went to get some candy from the candy bowl, which was in the front room, and it was by the window. He said the child had looked out the window and saw a creature standing at the window. And the kid started screaming, crying, uncontrollable. He thought he had got hurt. He was sitting in the kitchen having some coffee, waiting on his wife to get out of the shower. So he says he runs to the front room, to check on the child. He said he's standing there just screaming at the window, crying. He said he had snot hanging. The kid's very upset. So he says he goes to, squat down on the floor to comfort the child. And the child is screaming, monster, 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 monster. So he said he could tell that something had really upset this child. So he goes to the back bedroom, taking the child with him, and he grabs the shotgun that he later met the trooper at the door with. He said, I grabbed the shotgun. Okay, so after he grabbed the shotgun, he says he went to the front room again, and whenever they walked into the front room, he saw a hairy hand reaching underneath the window. He said the palm was up, and it was trying to get the window up. At this time, he says his wife had came out of the shower and she had seen it doing this, and she ran past the wood stove they have sitting there. He said there's a wood stove and then the window and then the table the candy dish was on. He said she grabs the fire poker and starts jamming it into this thing's hand and beating it. he says he can't get a shot off because she's ran in front of him, beating it with the, the fire sticker. So he can't get a shot off the shotgun. Shotgun spreads, it's too dangerous. So he said he whips the shotgun around and he starts beating it in the fingers. He said while he's doing this, it is growling really deep, and he said it sounds like it's trying to talk, but it's not making words. It's like an animal growl, but like it's trying to make syllables. He said really weird. It really freaked him out. And he said as they done this, it finally pulled its hand out of the window, took off. That's whenever they called 911. He said while they were waiting for the deputy to arrive, which was the deputies giving the report, he says they're sitting in the front room and it comes back to the window. And this time, he says, it sticks both hands on the outside of the window and is trying to push the window up. So the wife, his wife, the grandma to the child, is not in the way. So he raises the shotgun this time and is going to shoot through the window. He says it ducks and is gone. Well, at that time, he says, the officer arrived, started spotlighting the opposite side of the house where the beast was. The officer pulls in, and now the officer is up to the point where I told you he was met at the door with the shotgun. All right. After all this happens, he's talking to him. The man is clearly upset, so he goes ahead and he calls the sheriff out. The sheriff arrives. The sheriff listens, to the story, sees the blood, the shotgun. Everybody's upset. The sheriff even mentions to the deputy, he says, I'm worried about him. Get him set down, get him cooled off. He's sweating, and they're really worried about him. So they ask him if he wants an ambulance. He, of course, denies an ambulance. And he says as he's sitting there, the weird thing is the sheriff makes a phone call. And he says about 20 minutes after the sheriff made a phone call, game wardens arrive. He said the game wardens come in, and they kind of act like they take over the show, and that's very uncommon, but he said they go in and they start asking him, what did you see, what was happening, and of course he gives them the same story. And the game warden says, it was a dog. And the man, he said, is clearly upset, and he says this was no dog. He says it was almost 7 foot tall. It had ambered eyes. It looked like a dog. It had a snout. It had teeth. But it was tall, and it was walking on 2 legs. They said no. The game warden stated, we believe that the man was upset, probably had food inside the house, and a large dog or wolf may have smelled the food and had jumped up on the window to try to gain access to the food. This man, he said, becomes visibly upset. The game wardens are telling him it was a dog, and it gets to the point where the game warden says, filing a false report is a felony, and you can go to jail. So they threatened him not to say what he's seen. If he made a report, he'd go to jail. That really aggravated me. But anyways, he said this is one of the reasons he felt this needed to be shared, because a lot of these are being done like this. So anyways, he said the game warden makes the remark, we're going to take the gun and the knife for evidence, and they're placed into evidence bags. Because they're sure it's a dog, but they're still going to take the gun and the knife. And then they say they're going to clean the blood up, because this dog or wolf or whatever attacked the house was probably rabid, and they wouldn't want the child to get sick from the blood, which, if you know about rabies, it does not live long on the outside of the body. But they're concerned about this, and they said that they actually cleaned all the blood from around the window, and then they left with the evidence. 2 weeks later, the elderly back up. 2 weeks later, he says he gets another call to the house. They get a 911 call for a medical, and whenever they arrive at the house, they find the same gentleman out in his deer stand. He has a deer stand up in a tree made out of wood that he had built with like a latch or a door on the bottom. A latch that comes down to enter and then close it. They found 2 shots through the bottom of the floor with a .243 rifle. No hair, no blood to be found, and the gentleman was deceased from a heart attack inside of the deer blind. So I'm, speculating. It's just a speculation. Whatever it was, it came back, and he shot at it and probably had a heart attack, because as worked up as he was the first time, you could tell that he gets pretty worked up over these things. And it probably came back to finish what they had started, probably because it was injured. A lot of people say if you injure them, they will come back for you, and sometimes with more than one. Uh, I know whenever I shot the thing that I shot at my granny's, that it did come back, and it did get worse for a while, and got to a point to where sometimes this thing would act almost so human at my granny's that you didn't know if it was a human or something. I mean, there was times whenever I would have it in my sights, and then the back of your mind, you're thinking, this could be somebody, and you don't want to just outright shoot somebody. It's weird how human it can act at times. That's all I'm going to say. I'm thinking about writing a book. People's asked me to do it. I mean, God, I don't know how many pages it would be, because my mom and her 8 brothers and sisters, they went through this their whole life, and it had stopped. I mean, it had stopped whenever I was, a kid, until my grandma had her stroke. Then all the kids came back home to take turns to take care of my granny, and it seemed like when they came back home, it came back. So, and they always said it was more after my mom than anybody, but that's another story. But anyways, back to this story. He said he felt that it was important to get this information out. Of course, he's still working, and he said, a comment right here, he said, and also the small town that I work in, it borders Kentucky. And then I seen the story you done about the 13-year-old, and I'm wondering, did they actually go out, because the game warden said they went out, remedied the problem, and killed the wolf, but then Corey Godsey happened, and he said it kind of all made him wonder, did they kill it or did they just run it out, and then that's what happened. But I appreciate him sending that in. He said he wanted to remain anonymous. The email's now deleted. I keep my word to him. He's a brother to me, and glad he trusted me enough to send it in, and I wanted to share it with you guys. Hope you all are having a good Easter. If you're out and about, be careful, and look forward to talking to you all next time. Check out our Facebook page. I want to mention that I have a Facebook page, same name, and I'll put the link to it in the description if y'all want to join our Facebook page. We do a lot of like little extra stuff in there that sometimes you don't see on our channel. So again, thanks and happy Easter.